Culture Interrupted, produced by Cognitive Rise Productions. What is culture? How we observe and celebrate, how we care makes us a people, upholding traditions built from our morals and experiences and values that we all have in common. Culture is how we share in the experience of life. Culture is how we celebrate life. What is happening in the cannabis industry? What are the changes and effects being felt? With regulation upon us, it is imperative that innovators remain compelling in action towards the ultimate goal, which is moving into a realm of highest quality standards and guidelines focused on wellness, harmony, education. Culture Interrupted is honored to present Jake Sassaman.
I'm an advocate, first and foremost, for safe access for everybody. I've held a city-level commission position in the past. As a youth, I used to give to Normal. I'm more for local orgs nowadays, but I'd say advocate over business person, for sure. How important is culture or cannabis culture to me? I mean, I think it depends on the culture, but cannabis culture has been a part of my life since I was 12 years old. It's something that I grew up on, something that put food on the table, something that I really held in a lot of high esteem and regard, because I think when something's illicit, it creates a community where people, trusted people, friends and family, watch out for each other. Witnessing how miraculous cannabis, specifically CBD, is as a medicine, particularly an anti-epidemic and an anti-convulsant. My dog, Thuggy, she was an English bulldog, and they're prone to a lot of health issues, had epilepsy. And I brought her, she was having like a 3-day nonstop seizure. And I brought her to the vet, who gave her phenobarbital, which basically knocked her out, but she was still whimpering and still kind of shaking in her sleep. So when I brought her back to the vet, they said that I should put her down, and I kind of freaked out and stormed out. I'm like, that's crazy. I'm not giving up on my dog. I reached out on Facebook, and an old coworker of mine told me to come by, that his dog had the same problem, and he would give me some of this CBD tincture. She was calm and back to her old self within a matter of minutes, and she stopped shaking like as soon as she ingested that CBD. When a group of people get together and smoke, there's trust there. That's exactly what there is there. There's community. It's just this tie that binds, that always has. And I think that's going to change, and has sort of changed in the wake of legalization and decriminalization and medical use across the country. Getting together with a group of people, whether they be like-minded people or not, and being able to share this experience that cannabis brings, whether it be therapeutic or recreational, just brings people together and makes people happy. It's always done that. It's very important because there's power in numbers, obviously. Please be in good health. Don't pass anybody a cold or anything like that. If you're not feeling well, just kind of step out and say, yeah, I don't want to get anybody else sick. I think always passing to the left has been the standard. Etiquette, like with personal pipes and personal bowls that people pack for each other, especially with dabs, it's like, keep hitting it, that's all for you. These things are implied depending on circumstance. Pass the Dutchie to the left-hand side, as they say. Cannabis culture, well, especially in California, has always been a huge catalyst for change.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
Just the fact that people are locked up for something that's so harmless and something that is so beneficial got me involved. I mean, I've been giving money to Normal since I was 16. Cannabis is instrumental in my life. It's one of those things that I know will always be a part of my life. The notion that I could ever get locked up for something that helps so many people, that is so important to me and so important in regards to social justice. I mean, what anybody wants to consume that is of sound mind and of legal age is really nobody's business but their own. But taking it a step further, decriminalizing it or legislating it on the same platform as alcohol is just really what's ridiculous about it and harmful. So that's something I'd like to see change. I think that's hugely important. There's bars that are open till 4 a.m., people driving drunk and killing each other. If you look at the stats for cannabis, that doesn't happen. There's so many flaws in the system that need to be fixed, and like that's one of the huge, like biggest priorities. I think Prop 64 is destroying the culture here in California. I think people were sold a bill of goods that they really didn't understand. The only uptick to 64 was, had California voted against it, it would have been a bad look for the national movement. Yet, what it did essentially was push out the people who had built cannabis businesses from the ground up, that have lived this lifestyle and have been staunch cannabis activists and advocates from the beginning. And those people are getting shut out. Philip Morris said at a Boston conference that they're seriously considering looking into getting into that market. And I think that's what we're going to be buying. Your craft farmer won't have a chance. Essentially, these big conglomerate corporate assholes are watching us and learning how to do this thing that as a community we crafted in the underground for years. And they're going to be able to put their top guys on this shit and pound out quality product that will leave no room for anybody who equity programs are trying to help, for any disenfranchised communities, for people who've been locked up for cannabis. 64 is basically just a corporate takeover, and that's not what cannabis is about. It's about healing, and it's about community and friendship and bringing people together.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
Making a buck off cannabis is not my primary concern. Obviously, you need to pay the bills, but really just having safe access to cannabis is the number one concern for me. I pursued a dispensary permit in Oakland, had investors, and really what turned them off was the equity program. And the equity program in its intent was fantastic, but in its implementation was just piss poor. It didn't really help many people. It did help some. Going through the application process in Oakland, having to incubate, finding investors, and dealing with those investors only to have them pull out when they realize that they don't have enough money to compete with some of these companies that have millions of dollars and have agreed to pay the rent for equity applicants, 1,000 square feet a month in Oakland. It's a lot of money. So yeah, I mean, it took a toll. There are just so many businesses that were too small to incubate. Oakland used to be looked at as like the safe haven and capital for cannabis businesses and cannabis use. Now it's looked at as a cash cow by the city. The key thing we should be thinking about is getting these people who have been harmed by the war on drugs the first opportunity to excel and make a living in the field. Really just making equity programs more transparent and easier to navigate with less roadblocks. It would be hugely beneficial. I don't think it is working as it was intended. Equity to people who have lived in certain zones of the city for a certain amount of years, or people that have been locked up for cannabis. Rich people, rich white people, got to profit off of this equity program because of gentrification. They targeted these certain neighborhoods that were traditionally neighborhoods that had mostly people of color living there, and businesses that catered to people of color. And Oakland has changed so radically over the years that putting an address on who gets equity really just didn't make much of a difference. It strived to provide reparations to communities that were unfairly locked up, largely due to racial profiling, and I don't see those people being served or thriving the way the plan was implemented, the way it was written. I mean, personally, I lived in an equity zone, but do I deserve equity? No, I don't, the plan wasn't written for me. I could have applied for it, but I decided not to because I didn't think that's what the intent was, you know? It has done some good in Oakland across the board, especially with the lightening of rules by Councilperson Gallo, who amended it so that equity businesses could integrate into their incubator. The activists and the people in the audience saying, hey, this is going to hurt us, this isn't going to help the people that it needs to help, was met by huge opposition, mainly by Desley Brooks, because she made it really a nightmare for people to change this equity program to make it effective.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
In California, in 5 years, if it's not nationally decriminalized by that point, I see Monsanto and Philip Morris really running the game. Will that hurt the culture? Absolutely. Will it make it more accessible? Maybe. Will the price go down? Likely. But also will the quality, the transparency. When you get these big corporate groups that really don't care about people involved, it takes the compassion out of the plant. The folks that have been running these cannabis businesses under 215 have tried to be, for the most part, transparent and compassionate, really worked to help and heal people. That's obviously not a concern for Bayer and Monsanto. I also see the compassion and the ethics disintegrating. I think the black market will always thrive in the wake of 64. The state projections for how much money we're supposed to make are minuscule. The black market is thriving, and it will continue to thrive until we get fair legislation. Taxes are exorbitant. Access to quality product and medicine is so far and in between. We have a regulatory body that's massively understaffed that actually drug tests for cannabis, so they could care less. I'm talking about the BCC, the Bureau of Cannabis Control. I mean, it's run by the former head of the alcohol board, the ABC. The black market will thrive because that's where the community is, that's where the vibe is. I think that in this day and age, people would rather give their money to the farmer that they've trusted for decades rather than give their money to Marlboro or any of these, huge companies that are trying to cash in on culture, on social injustice, people who have died because of no access.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
I think the most important part of cannabis culture that needs to be nourished and protected, and that needs to live through these uncertain times, is the medical compassion aspect. The state's working on bills to fit compassion into legal cannabis so that we can help veterans and so that we can help terminally ill people and get people off of opiates. Really, that medical compassion aspect is the most important factor in cannabis culture. I'd like to see these massive corporations somehow really barred from there's countries that have banned Philip Morris from operating, and like Bhutan. And there's countries, I believe, like France, that won't do business with Monsanto. And we shouldn't be doing business with these companies either. So I'd like to see these harmful, hostile corporate takeovers go away. It's dog eat dog now. The profit margins are so thin that there's this new wave of narking and dry snitching that's somehow become okay. When we used to all rely on each other to keep each other safe so that we could keep providing access, safe access to this sacred plant, there's this attitude that, oh, this guy doesn't have a license, so it's cool if I call up the city or I call up the BCC or I call up the state and rat them out. No, that's not cool. That's not what cannabis is about. It's about working together and helping people. I think your veteran farmer, veteran extractors, so far as non-volatile extractors, really these people who have been doing it for years are vitally important. The innovators that came along that put all this money into cannabis research with huge restrictions have made strides and been able to make great products for people, are also people that need to be protected and should have a future in this game. I'd like to see this attitude of narking on your fellow cannabis entrepreneur. Everybody's hurting with these taxes and the profit margins, but it simply isn't okay to tattle in cannabis culture. It never has been. So I'd like to see that dissolve, and I'd like cannabis culture here in California evolve into really what it was under 215, because we've regressed. So I'd like to get back to compassion, really just keep working on destigmatizing use of cannabis. The stigma's got to go. But really, if I had a time machine, I'd want to go back to 215.
You are listening to Culture Interrupted.
I just think 64 was such a bad law, and your average voter and your average smoker goes to the poll and they're like, legal weed, hell yeah, but you're looking at the fine print, it's like they didn't tell you this shit was going to be $20 more an eighth. They didn't tell you that your favorite brands are going to disappear. That was all in the fine print. That's not what they sold you. And everyone's complaining about the high price now, and their favorite sessions, going away, and they're going to these cannabis cups where they can't even smoke cannabis anymore. All of this is because of 64. People really just need to mobilize to change that law, because another Sean Parker is not going to come around with $5 million and try to fix these things, because there's no money in fixing these things. So it's really up to the community to do so. I think it's important for passionate cannabis users to vote for the right people. When you're voting locally at the state level, research who you vote for. When we can kick this asshole out of office, whether by impeaching him or come 2020, just do your research. Your vote is important. Talking about cannabis is essential to destigmatizing it. First of all, it's being legislated so hostily because people equate it as dangerous and illicit, and there's more restrictions on cannabis than there is alcohol. Yet, when it comes to violent crime, there's just no comparison between alcohol and cannabis. And so we really need to vote the people into office who understand this and be more informed when you vote. Safe access to consumption is imperative to keeping the culture alive. Taking people off of opiates, taking people off of being a 6 to 12 beer a night drinker to using cannabis is the best thing we could do for everybody's health. I think I'm guided morally more so than financially. I do a lot of free work for cannabis. I don't get paid for the majority of what I do for this plant, but it's sacred to me, and it always has been, and it always will be. I hope that the veteran farmer and hash maker and edible maker still has a place in the future. But if they don't, I just hope in the future we'll still have access to cannabis flowers and we'll always be able to grow our own medicine. I try to let my connection with the plant guide me to a brighter future.
We appreciate you making the time to listen to Culture Interrupted.